Hello and a very warm welcome to another brand new episode of Science Monitor, our weekly update on all that's happening in the field of science and technology in and around the country. From collaborative scientific ventures to prestigious recognitions and gruesome warnings. Join us in today's interesting exploration of the scientific world, but first a look at the headlines. Researchers warn that a strain is building up in the Himalayas, warn of a massive earthquake. The West looks towards the East for directions. Indian professors review, now part of US schools' syllabus. India-Britain Centre to Minimize Antibiotics Abuse, joint venture aims at new drugs and diagnostics. Breaking conventional barriers, a 14-year-old invents an air cooling system that gets international acceptance. And in today's In Focus, we will discuss the roles of science and technology in building the nation, the theme for National Science Day 2015. And now the news in detail. The Himalayan region is ripe for an earthquake. Teams tracking seismic activity in the region are witnessing a steady buildup of stress that could manifest as a huge earthquake very soon. What would be the consequences and how do we prepare ourselves to face the fury? Let's explore in this report.
From the 1934 earthquake in Bihar to the tremors that shook Gujarat in 2001, India has a long and quite tragic history of devastating earthquakes. But the worst is yet to come. Digging into the central Himalayas, a group of researchers have raised a red alert. They predict that an earthquake of over 8 magnitude is brewing in the central Himalayan region. The team is led by Dr. C.P. Rajendran from the Jawaharlal Nehru Centre for Advanced Scientific Research, Dr. Kushala Rajendran from the Indian Institute of Science, and Dr. Biju John from the National Institute of Rock Mechanics. The earthquake will be caused by stress building due to tectonic plate movements towards Tibet. Tectonic plates are distinct regions of the Earth's crust that are continuously sliding over each other. Combined with other geographical factors, the motion releases sudden bursts of energy in the Earth's crust. These bursts are nature's way of releasing the strain that builds inside the Earth's surface. The region of the central Himalayas has been exceptionally calm for many centuries now. Only 2 earthquakes have taken place in the 13th and 14th centuries AD. This period is also referred to as the seismic gap. Magnitudes of these earthquakes weren't large enough to release the strain building within the plates, which means that these regions are accumulating a large amount of strain for years now and are ripe for an earthquake.
Since the last earthquake in the 14th century, there were no great earthquake that had ruptured, at least going by the evidence shown in that particular section. We assume that there are no great earthquake that occurred during the last 700 years, that is since the 14th century earthquake. The 700 years means it's about 10 to 14 meters of slip that needs to be accounted. So since earthquakes are missing for the 700 years, it means that the region most likely is locked, and that particular segment is quite mature to generate the next great earthquake.
The warning can play a huge role in mitigating risks that the quake will have over the large population living in the central Himalayan regions. While we prepare ourselves to face the calamity, it will do well to take lessons from the effective hazard reduction models of the Western United States and Japan. Scientists have also called for an urgent action plan to create public awareness and enforce building codes and related environmental laws.
As the temperature of the Earth rises, polar caps will melt. Sea levels will rise and small countries located on seashores will be underwater. That's in the esteemed opinion of Professor Onkar Singh, Vice Chancellor of the Madan Mohan Malviya University of Technology in Uttar Pradesh. Professor Onkar Singh is the first Indian author whose article had been officially accepted to be taught under US schools syllabi. Here's a report.
Unexpected floods, severe droughts, dwindling food and water resources. The horrors of global warming are many and real. Today, nations across the world are grappling with the issue of global warming and subsequent climate change. With the life, health and economic prospects of billions of people at stake, hope now lies in the hands of the young. With this aim of catching them young, a textbook has been introduced in the United States titled, "Can Glacier and Ice Melt Be Reversed?" The textbook, meant for students from class 10 to 12, is a compilation of articles that discuss reasons causing global warming and the possible solutions to it. And what is more, an Indian professor's article is one of the highlights of the textbook, making him the first Indian author to appear in the school textbooks of the US. Melting of glaciers cannot be reversed with global warming. This is the title of the article by Professor Onkar Singh, Vice Chancellor of Madan Mohan Malviya University of Technology, Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh, which has found a place in the US textbook, "Can Glacier and Ice Melt Be Reversed?" The article that discusses about the need of addressing issues like melting of glaciers and the consequent rise in the sea level very seriously has been co-authored by Professor Bharat Singh. This is the first time that an article of Indian origin has been included in the US school syllabi. This feat has got Professor Onkar Singh a place in the Limca Book of Records, a catalogue of achievements made by Indians at home and abroad in diverse fields of human endeavour. Professor Onkar Singh also holds a place in the Limca Book of Records for making a vehicle that runs on compressed air. He continues to work on the model, which apparently gives a mileage of 45 kilometers for air worth just 5 rupees.
Well, from teachers like Professor Onkar Singh to students like Nisha Kumari, India has no dearth of scientific talent. Hailing from a small town in Ranchi, she's reached Japan at a tender age of 14 years. Set to demonstrate her innovative cooler in front of an international audience, Nisha Kumari underlines the need to educate girls. Let's get you the details of this youngster's invention.
Sometimes the most complicated problems may have simple yet innovative solutions. And it is also true that most innovations come from limited resources. What better example of this than an innovation by 14-year-old Nisha Kumari? Nisha lives in a slum in Adityapur in Ranchi, and yet she has achieved what most children her age can only dream of. Nisha today holds an invitation from Japan for a cooler developed by her that uses wind as its energy source. Nisha has proved that age cannot define scientific acumen. She has developed a cooler that is based on wind energy instead of electricity, making it a good option for people living in areas that don't have access to electricity. The device consists of a wind turbine attached to the roof or any other elevated surface. The turbine is connected to a cooler made of bamboo. For her innovative solution that can help poor households tackle extreme summers, even in the absence of electricity, Nisha will be sponsored by the Science and Technology Department for the Sakura Exchange Program that is to be organized in Japan. Nisha has so far won many awards for her invention. On 8 October 2014, she won the competition organized by the Science and Technology Ministry at Delhi. Touring Japan on the 9th of May this year, Nisha will get an opportunity to present her technology in front of hundreds of scientists. The daughter of a skilled laborer, Nisha is an inspiration for budding young scientists of the country. She is testimony to the fact that limited resources cannot be a limitation to imagination and creativity. Science Monitor joins the country in wishing Nisha a bright future.
do you have a mild fever with throat infection? Take an erythromycin or amoxicillin. What about a case of food poisoning? Pop in an azithromycin or ciprofloxacin. Such simple self-medication tips are a familiar trend. But while we randomly ingest antibiotics in an attempt to self-diagnose and cure, do we realize the long-term and irreversible damages that are caused? Bacteria are evolving and developing resistance to antibiotics. And the day is not far when existing drugs will fail to treat even the mildest infections. Let's see what a recent Indo-Britain agreement is doing to tackle this very problem.
Antibiotics, one of the wonders of modern healthcare. From penicillin to erythromycin, this class of drugs has helped us cure some of the deadliest diseases known to humankind. But with increasing access to medications, self-medication and reckless use of antibiotics to cure common ailments have become a trend. Thoughtlessly swallowing over-the-counter antibiotics, we have pushed the world into the deadly post-antibiotic era of superbugs, in which common infections and minor injuries are often incurable. Realizing the need to control antibiotic abuse, India and Britain will now undertake a landmark collaboration that seeks to address this issue. New antibiotics, new diagnostics and improved delivery systems that can work in the so-called post-antibiotic era. These are the goals of the collaboration. And both the countries plan to invest nearly £7 million towards establishing 3 major global research centres to achieve these goals. With the report of antibiotic-resistant diseases like totally drug-resistant tuberculosis and incurable infections on the rise, it is evident what years of indiscriminate use of antibiotics have resulted in. The collaborative venture through the UK Indian Centre for Advanced Technology for minimizing the indiscriminate use of antibiotics will focus on research in the area of antimicrobial resistance. The scientific team will work on the idea that certain materials respond to bacteria by changing state on binding to bacteria. The researchers aspire to use this knowledge to create new smart materials for next-generation contact lenses. The lenses will give color indications that will help detect eye infections and help deliver antibiotics to infected sites in the eye without affecting healthy cells. The study, which will be led by a multidisciplinary team from the University of Sheffield and the University of Bradford, offers a ray of hope towards new and effective solutions to tackle the problem of drug resistance.
Time for a very short break here. We'll be right back. Keep watching Science Monitor. Welcome back. You're watching Science Monitor. Let's now take a look at some important science and technology activities happening in India and abroad in our special segment, Science Express.
The 10th biennial edition of the International Aerospace and Defence Exhibition, Aero India 2015, was inaugurated by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi in Bengaluru. The event, being organised at the Air Force Station, Yelahanka in Bengaluru, is focused on the theme Make in India. The event, being attended by representatives of Indian Defence Services, delegations from several foreign countries, veterans and senior executives from defence industries, aims to propel self-reliance in defence production. India's defence technologies like the light combat aircraft and a light combat helicopter, the Sukhoi 30 MKI, etc. were displayed at the event. On 18 February, Mrida Parikshak, a mini lab to determine soil health developed by the ICAR, Indian Institute of Soil Science, Bhopal, in collaboration with Messrs. Nagarjuna Agrochemicals Private Limited, Hyderabad, was dedicated to the nation. Mrida Parikshak is a digital mobile quantitative mini lab or soil test kit. The kit aims to provide easy soil testing service to farmers. The Mini Lab determines all the important soil parameters like soil pH, organic carbon, available nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur and micronutrients like zinc, boron and iron. It also provides crop and soil-specific fertilizer recommendations directly to the farmer's mobile through SMS. On 17 February, in an event jointly organised by IIT Bengaluru and the British High Commission, India's first Web Observatory was launched at the International Institute of Information Technology, Bengaluru. The Web Observatory that has been set up in partnership with the Web Science Trust, the University of Southampton and other global web science laboratories is the first of its kind in India and aims to provide a global distributed analytics platform. The platform will not only provide access to data sets of various sizes but will also help analyze the web. According to a recent report, limpet's teeth may outscore spider silk as nature's toughest fiber. Limpets are a group of marine snails found in shallow ocean waters. According to scientists, the teeth of these snails, made of nanofibers of an iron-containing crystal called goethite, encased in a protein matrix, has a tensile strength between 3 and 6.5 gigapascals compared to 1.3 gigapascals tensile strength of spider silk. 3 Indians, including 2 women and 1 man, have been shortlisted to the list of 100 applicants who will move on to the next round of the Mars One mission. Mars One is an ambitious private mission by a Netherlands-based non-profit organization that aims to set up a human colony on Mars. The plan is to eventually send around 40 people to Mars on a basis of endurance. The Indian candidates selected among the 100 people for third-level training include 29-year-old Taranjeet Singh Bhatia, who is studying doctorate in computer science at the University of Central Florida. The other 2 are Ritika Singh, 29, who lives in Dubai, and 19-year-old Sharda Prasad from Kerala. The Wildlife Institute of India is conducting a walk-in interview for recruitment for the post of research biologist. The walk-in interview that will be conducted on the 2nd of March is open to individuals holding a master's degree in wildlife sciences, forestry, forest management, environmental sciences or life sciences. Interested candidates may find more details of the interview at the Wildlife Institute of India's website www.wii.gov.in.
Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru once said, "No nation can afford to ignore science." Aptly said, the progress of any nation is parallel to the progress of science and technology. 28th of February every year is celebrated as the National Science Day in India. And the theme this year is Science for Nation Building. So what exactly is the role of science and technology in nation building? As the country gears up for yet another day of celebrating science, let's seek the answer to this question in our segment In Focus.
It is science alone that can solve the problems of hunger and poverty, of insanitation and illiteracy. These are the famous words of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. From the success of Mangalyaan and total eradication of polio, India's hold on advancing science and technology is today undisputable. India's rise from the ruins of colonial rule is the story of building a nation on the pillars of science and technology. Thanks to Pandit Nehru and many other visionary leaders and scientists. Science and technology has played the most crucial role in the development of human civilization. Nations of today have been built on discoveries that range from the most fundamental, like the fire and the wheel, to supercomputers and nanoparticle-based technologies. The industrialization of India is a result of promotion of science and technology, from electronics, steel and automobiles to textiles, pharmaceuticals and fertilizers. Science has helped build the industrial sector in India. While famines and starvation were a frequent occurrence in the past, technologies under the Green Revolution have changed the scenario. With improved irrigation, fertilizers and crop varieties, India's food grain production has more than doubled over the decades that followed colonial rule to a record 264 million tons in the fiscal year 2014. Similar is the case of healthcare in the country. Thanks to the growth of medicine and drug industry, post-independence, we have been able to largely decrease the death rate. In 1951, the at-birth life expectancy was around 37 years, which increased to nearly 65 years by 2011. Infant and maternal mortality has also been controlled to a large extent. Some disease fronts where significant results have been achieved include malnutrition, polio, leprosy, cholera, malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV. In the field of space, India is today one amongst the elite nations of the world, with robust satellite and launching systems and the success of experiments like Mangalyaan and Chandrayaan. India is today a space superpower. Science and technology has also played a huge role in strengthening India's defense systems. With an array of ballistic missiles and defense technologies, including radars and aircraft, India is second to none. Realizing the importance of science and technology, the Indian government has been continuously taking up programs to promote the same. While our nation has made great progress in terms of education and science and technology, there is still considerable amount of work to be done. While science and technology is the backbone of a nation, let us not forget that if a country is to achieve progress, it is absolutely necessary to foster scientific temper among the citizens. Scientifically tempered citizens are capable of critical evaluation and making rational and progressive decisions. The lack of this plunges a nation into superstitions and hampers progress. As Article 51A of our Indian Constitution says, it is the fundamental duty of every Indian citizen to develop a scientific temper. Hence, as we celebrate the spirit of science on National Science Day, let us recognize the importance of science in building nations and pledge to promote the scientific temper and encourage scientific innovations.
And what are the contributions of science to this week's history? Let's learn in our next segment, History of Science.
Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, the famous German physicist, was born in Hamburg, Germany. Hertz proved the existence of electromagnetic waves using engineering instruments to transmit and receive radio pulses. The scientific unit of frequency, earlier called cycles per second, is named Hertz in his honor. It is interesting to note that a crater that lies on the far side of the moon and the famous Heinrich Hertz Turm radio telecommunication tower in Hamburg is also named in his honor. The Gregorian calendar, commonly known as the Western calendar or the Christian calendar, was introduced. Named after Pope Gregory XIII, this is today's internationally followed calendar. This calendar was strictly a solar calendar and introduced a 0.002% correction in the length of the year as given by the previous Julian calendar. The Gregorian calendar modified the way the date of Easter was calculated and gave a new definition for the leap year. The discovery of pulsar, the short for pulsating star, was announced. Pulsars are special, highly magnetized rotating stars that emit electromagnetic radiations at precise intervals. The first pulsating star, called Little Green Men 1, was observed on November the 28th, 1967 by two researchers, Jocelyn Bell Burnell and her mentor, Anthony Hewish. However, the announcement of the discovery was made a year later on the 24th of February, 1968. Sir Chandrasekhar Venkata Raman announced the discovery of his famous Raman effect. Raman effect explores the scattering of light when it passes through a medium and explains the change in wavelength of light that occurs when a beam of light is deflected by the molecules of a medium it passes through. Sir C.V. Raman was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for this discovery in 1930. 28th February each year is celebrated as National Science Day in India to mark the discovery of the Raman effect.
Well, that's all we have for you in this episode of Science Monitor. Do tell us whether you liked our program. You can send your feedback and suggestions on the following email ID: news@vigyanprasad.gov.in. You can also write to us at Vigyan Prasad, C24, Qutub Institutional Area, New Delhi 110016. That's all for you today. We'll be back with fresh news stories on science and technology, same time next week. Till then, stay tuned and think scientific.